recording, and I'm going to introduce you to the audience in a few seconds.
Yeah, that's great.
All right then. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third lecture of Poliglotar Conference, 5th edition. I'm very pleased to introduce you to Pedro Guilherme, also known as Pedro Poliglota, who will be speaking, giving a talk on how knowing the phonetic alphabet can help you become a better polyglot by getting more familiarized with the sound systems of different languages. Pedro has a degree in journalism and has a master's degree in literature, and he is passionate about languages. He speaks 6 languages and is currently learning Chinese. And last year we had the privilege to have him give a lecture at the event in which he shared his learning experiences, particularly focused on Chinese, and also he gave tons of hints for people who were, like looking for strategies to improve their language learning process. So welcome, Pedro. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'd like to thank you guys for organizing this event. I had the pleasure to go to São Paulo last year, and I had the privilege to be a speaker and to share my passion on language learning with so many other people that love to do it. And I'm here again. Thank you very much. Thanks very much for the organizers. As Robson said, today I'm going to talk about the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. I would like to hear from you guys here in the chat. Who knows, who has a faint idea of what the IPA is? Can you guys send me a message? Can you guys type down if you're familiar with this or not? Or if it's a complete new, okay, I see a thumbs up. That's good. Yeah, not really. Okay, that's nice too. So you're gonna choose. Okay. Yeah, that's nice. It's let me share my screen, and then we can start talking about it. So I had phonetics in my major. That's cool. So guys, can you see my screen? Can you see my presentation? Yeah, I'm sharing my PowerPoint presentation. Can you see it? Yeah, let me open the chat, just a second. Okay, thumbs up. Okay, that's nice. So how the IPA can make you a better polyglot. And here I made a little description about description on how this sentence would be transcribed using the IPA. Of course, it's not perfect. First observation I have to do here, I'm not a linguist, okay? I have a degree in journalism. I studied literature. I learned languages for fun, yeah. I'm currently giving language classes as well. I teach English, French, and Spanish, but I'm not a professional in this case. I would like to talk to you about the IPA, especially talking about how you can learn better other languages, okay? So let's go. If you see this list of words here, let me read them really fast for you. It's Jack, father, zebra, law, eat, share, and private, okay? In all these words, we have something in common. That is the letter A when we write it. So in the written form of all these words, we have the letter A. But we also have something very different in it. For each one of these words, we're gonna have a different pronunciation. So you have Jack, father, zebra, law, eat, share, and private, okay? So if you're learning English, it can be a big challenge to learn how to pronounce words, something that It's like the ground basis of learning a language, learning how it sounds, right? But it can get pretty tough because of spelling. Some languages have very messy spelling systems. This is the case of English, in my opinion. So how cool would it be if we had different symbols for different sounds, right? If we could have a different symbol for Jack, for father, for zebra, for law, for eight, for share, and for private, okay? It would be really, really cool if you could associate one sound with one symbol. Learning would be so much easier because it's, I think it's self-evident that it's kind of simple if you have this correspondence between one element and the other, okay? And the good news is that such a thing exists, and that's the IPA. We have an alphabet that has different symbols for different sounds, and you can use this alphabet to not only to describe languages, but also to, if you're learning a language, you can see how it is pronounced, okay? So when you open a dictionary, those funny letters, those funny symbols that you see, those are the IPA in action, okay? It's a closer description of how this word is pronounced. I remember when I was in school and I was learning English, and I saw these symbols and I said, man, that sounds complicated. Like, I don't even know if there's a pattern here, if each dictionary uses a different pattern. And it was just later in my life that I learned that this is a very well-structured system, okay? So here's how the IPA actually looks, okay? This is the last version of the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. We have many, many elements. It seems very complicated. To a certain degree, it is complex, okay? Languages are complex, but we can also break it down to a couple of ideas so we can try to begin to grasp it, especially for people who have never seen it before. So we have consonants in it. In the top of the chart, we have consonants. These are the consonants in human languages. And we're going to talk about how they are organized in a little bit. It sounds like a periodic table. It looks like a periodic table, right? But it's very interesting how it works. I'm going to tell you in a bit. We also have some vowels. When I was in school, I don't know about your experience, guys, but when I was at school, I learned that we had 5 vowels. We had A, E, I, O, U. And I learned English, and I could understand English pretty well. I couldn't speak it really well, but even after learning a second language, I had this belief. We have 5 vowels. We have I, A, O, U. And I thought this applied to all languages in the world, but that's simply not true. Okay, we have more than 20 possible vowel sounds. Both Portuguese and English are languages that have many, many vowel sounds. And particularly, I think English pronunciation is very tough. Yeah, I think in the languages that I speak, that is Brazilian Portuguese, English, French, Spanish, Italian, German, and now I'm learning Chinese. I think, put Mandarin aside, of course, that is another level of complexity regarding pronunciation. But with all these 6 languages, more common languages, I think English is the toughest one pronunciation, especially because it has many, many vowels, many different vowels. Okay, for diacritics, some pre-cue symbols that we're going to put around our symbols to give a more like a closer description to it, to give it a special characteristic. Okay, it gets deeper and deeper, and we don't need to learn all of them if you want to improve our pronunciation, our speaking abilities. We just have to learn a few of them depending on the language. Okay, and we have some other symbols that are going to information about the rhythm of language, about its melody, if it has, if some words or syllables have high pitch or low pitch, if they have long vowels or short vowels, if a syllable is stressed or unstressed, okay? So you have all these different components that in the end sum up to be a part of the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we can use it in our language learning practice, okay? The IPA is mainly used to describe languages as far as I'm concerned, okay? I'm not a linguist, one more time, but as far as I can see, linguists use it to describe languages, to make accurate, more precise scientific description of language. I think that's pretty awesome, that's pretty interesting, but it's not something that I have a personal or professional interest in. I'm really into learning languages, and this is what I'm talking about today, about how you can use the IPA to sharpen your language learning skills, okay? So how you can use the IPA to sharpen your language learning skills. You can do it by two principles. The first one is to improve the pronunciations in the languages you already speak. So if you already speak a second, a third, a fourth language, if you're already a polyglot, you can use this knowledge that the IPA provides in order to improve pronunciation in all of them. And you can also learn new languages faster. And I think it's kind of obvious why we want that, right? We're language learner lovers. So the faster we learn languages, the more languages we can learn. And that's pretty cool. I think it's, I don't have to give many arguments on this case. Let's talk first about how the IPA can improve the pronunciation in the languages we already speak, okay? So first of all, you can improve the pronunciation of some specific words that you have trouble with. If you're learning English and then you say this, you see this ism in the end of words, it's very common, even people that speak English fluently, to try to pronounce it as it is written. So say something like capitalism, but ism is very hard to pronounce. Regarding languages, as far as my experience, if something is very hard to pronounce, native speakers probably don't speak that way, right? Languages have this tendency of becoming more practical. People speak fast. So if it sounds like you're doing like some gymnastics in your mouth to produce those sounds, that's probably incorrect, okay? Native speakers probably have a better way of saying this. For example, in this case, capitalism, okay? Capitalism. So this is, in the end, we don't pronounce it like this. We pronounce something like ism, capitalism. In French, fréquemment, okay? We see an E here. We have the tendency to pronounce it like an E sound, but it's actually un, a, en fait, actually. So it's a, so fréquemment, okay? Extranjero, cappuccino, beabsichtigen. I don't know if I could like really grasp how this word is pronounced in German if I hadn't taken a look in the dictionary. Like when I was starting learning these languages, I went to the dictionary so many times to check specific words, and knowing the IPA really helped me on doing that, okay? You can also learn some specific, I would say phenomena that happens in language. I don't know if that's technically accurate, but some things that happen in languages, we try to memorize some rules in grammar books. That really doesn't work for me. So one thing that we can see in these words that they have in common is this ed in the end. So we have the tendency to think that they are pronounced in the same way, right? But when you actually learn how these words are pronounced, you can see that they are pronounced in 3 different ways. So we have the t sound, like looked, danced, tipped, okay? We have a d sound, like hugged, seized, and robbed. And we have an id sound, like suggested or commanded, okay? So if you go to a grammar book, you're probably going to see something, an explanation like after S, CH, SCH, and X, pronounce it as a T, right?
In Dutch, it's known as the kafship rules.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
In Dutch, it's known as the kafship rules. It governs by the same rules as Dutch and German about voiced and voiceless.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. I didn't know about that. Thanks very much for the contribution. Yeah. So we're going to take a look at how actually it works. Yeah, we're going to take a look at the logic behind it, because it really blew my mind when I learned it. And I thought, man, I'm never going to forget it. Yeah. For me, it's so much better to understand the process, even though it's a little bit complex. Okay, we have a few steps to go until you can know how it works. But it's better than just memorizing for me. So let's take a look. I would like that you are at home watching this. So Cesar Melo raised hand. I have never seen this feature on Zoom.
No, it's okay. He's just raising his hand so that he can have the floor like right at the end of the lecture, because he wants to be the first one.
Okay, that's nice. I didn't know about that. Okay, awesome. By the way, is everything okay? Can everybody hear me just fine? Yeah. I'm having a hard time opening the chat, but Hobson, if there's something wrong, you let me know, okay? Okay, that's awesome. So talking about the consonants here, let's try to interact a little bit. I would like you that are at home, try to reproduce some sounds, okay? I don't know if you're alone or not, if you have people beside you, but if you have people beside you, don't worry about sounding a little bit crazy, okay? We are all a little bit crazy for being here on a Sunday morning, so don't worry about producing ridiculous sounds out there, okay? So let's just identify some symbols for sounds that you guys already know, okay? So this symbol here is the symbol that represents the sound of pa, okay? Can everybody say papa? Okay, very good. So this symbol here is the sound of ba, okay? Baba. Can everybody say baba? Okay, nice. So we have some other symbols like t, okay? This is the t of titia and not of chichia, okay, guys? So let's make it pretty clear that we're talking about sounds, okay? So in Brasília, I'm from Brasília, I say chia, okay? And I say gia, but even though I write it with a T and I write it with a D, when I'm talking about the IPA, that's not the right way to pronounce it. Remember, each symbol represents a specific sound, okay? So in this case, it's T like tatu or titia, and it's D like dado or dia, okay? If I was going to transcribe the way I, Pedro, in Brazilian Portuguese, the way I say chia or gia, I would have to use a different symbol, okay? We have some other symbols like and okay, like fofa and vovo. We have these different symbols here, like this is the sound of, okay? You put your tongue here in your teeth and you say think. Can everybody say think? Yeah, can everybody say sopa de maçã? Yeah, can everybody say sopa de maçã sem sal e sem açúcar? Okay, very good. I see some laughs there. That's awesome. So this other symbol is the sound of they. You can also train it in Brazilian Portuguese, like trying to say caruva. Try to say caruva. Yeah, that's the sound of they, their, that. Okay. In English, it can be a little bit confusing when you see words that are written with TH, like think and they. We have this tendency of thinking in the beginning that it's basically the same sound, but it's not. We have two sounds for that, okay? We have some other symbols that are pretty intuitive for us, like sasa, like zuzu, okay? Then we have sound symbols that are a little bit different, but you already know the sounds of it. It's sha. Can you guys repeat sha? Okay. And this is ja, like jaja. Can you repeat jaja?
The same.
Okay. Okay, good. So the last two ones, okay, it's ka, like cacao, right? Or coco, and g, like gogo or gato, okay? And so these are like consonants that you guys already know. You are already familiar with the sounds, and it's gonna help us understand the logic between behind the different sounds of ED, and try to see some value for the IPA, okay? So let me just give you a glimpse of the organization of this consonant chart. I think that's pretty cool. When I learned about it, I was so happy. I don't know if I'm super excited about it, but I hope you guys are too. So this is organized in a way that it really makes sense. Like it's really well thought. So it is divided in columns and lines, as you can see. In the columns, you have what we call places of articulation. Okay, so you have different, let's say, places or organs in your vocal trait, in your vocal, your phonetic apparatus, right? That you're going to use to reproduce a couple of sounds. So here we have bilabial sounds. As the name already communicates, we're going to use both our lips to produce those sounds. Okay? So can you repeat? Papa, baba, mama. So with these sounds, you have to put your lips together. It's a bilabial sound. Okay. You also have, for example, labial-dental sounds. As the name suggests, we're going to use our lips and our teeth to produce those sounds. Try and sing fofa. Can you see? Can you feel it? Can you see that your teeth and your lip touch? Yeah, fofa. Okay, or vovo. Everybody, try saying vovo. Yeah. Can you see that they touch? So this is a labial-dental sound. Okay. And if you're learning a new language, for example, and you recognize, you see a different symbol that you're not familiar with, you can take a look at the chart. You can see if you use your teeth, if you use your lips, if you use your tongue, your palate, your glottis, you can understand a little bit better what organs are you going to use in order to produce the sound. Okay, so these are the columns, the places of articulation. As you can see, we also have lines, and those are the manners of articulation. Okay, that's how the air is gonna behave in your mouth, let's say, right? Oversimplifying, but what is the process of the air and the sound inside your phonetic apparatus for you to produce that sound? For example, here we have plosive sounds. Plosive, it always reminds me of explosive, right? Plosive, explosive. It's like you interrupt the flux of air a little bit, and then you release it like a little explosion. Yeah, can everybody one more time say pa, ba, pa, ba? So you stop it. Yeah, you stop, you interrupt the flux of air, you release it like a little explosion. Pa, ba, right? Like pipoca, right? You can almost hear the pipoca being made, right? Exposing with these little explosions in the pan, pipoca, right? Pipia, dado, cacao, go, gaga, right? You stop the air and you release it. Of course, we have some other manners of articulation, like nasal sounds that you're going to use. Also, the air goes through your nose in order to produce that sound. And that's why, for example, if you do like this and you say papa, 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 the sound is perfect. There's no problem in it. But if you say mama, it sounds really funny because you're interrupting the flux of air. Okay. So when you understand that the consonants are categorized in places of articulation and manners of articulation, you can cross them, and then you can identify some characteristics, vital characteristics of sounds and how you can produce them. Okay, so for example, you can see that the pa and ba, they are bilabial plosive sounds. So you're going to use both your lips, bilabial. You're going to interrupt the flux of air and release it like a little explosion that's plosive. Okay? I can now see that I chose the colors as some sort of nationalist IPA. It wasn't intentional. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if I should be sorry about that, but okay. So at the same time, we have two symbols here, right? We have two symbols that represent bilabial plosive sounds, okay? So what's the difference between them? Let me give you just one more concept, okay? Let me hang in there. Let me teach you just one more thing about the IPA, and then I can teach you about the ED sounds, and I can prove to you that this is a valuable resource, okay? So take a look. In some cases, we have two different symbols. So we have two different sounds that fall in the same category, right? You have two sounds that are bilabial and plosive. We have two sounds that are labial-dental and fricative. We have two sounds that are velar and plosive. So what's the difference between them? I would like to do a little experiment with you one more time. Can you take your hand, beautiful hand, place it on your throat, okay? And let's do like this sound here. This sound is, okay? Can you guys repeat after me? Okay, very good. Now, this sound, like a little bee, okay? Let's all become a little bee. Let's say like, can you see there's a difference? Here we say, oh, where's my mouse? Here we say, you can see that in the right symbol, the blue symbol, our vocal cords vibrate. And in the left symbol, the red symbol, our vocal cords don't vibrate, okay? This is the difference between voiceless sounds and voiced sounds that Matthias brought up, talking about Dutch, right? So this is a characteristic of the consonants. Yeah, we can categorize them in places of articulation, manner of articulation, and on being voiceless. In Portuguese, I think it's such an ugly word, desvozeado, right? Jesus. Or voiced sounds that we call vozeado, right? So when you have all these characteristics, these three elements, you can categorize a sound in a very specific way. Okay? Oh, good. Any questions? Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, very good. Okay, what does all of this have to do with the ED? Okay, so let's take a look. I told you that we have three options, right? For how to pronounce these words, that in their written form, they are written with ED. So we have a T sound, looked. We have a D sound, hugged. And we have an id sound, id, an extra syllable, id, in suggested, okay? And it's pretty straightforward, actually. We have to really know how to pronounce these words, we have to take a look at the sound that comes before the ed, okay? So take a look at this first column. We have looked, we have danced, we have tipped, okay? So we have let's take a look here in the chart. We have k, it's a voiceless sound. We have dense, it's a voiceless sound. And we have tipped is a voiceless sound, okay? So something happens here, and it's easier for us to just produce another voiceless sound that is t from titia, right? T, after these other sounds. So whenever you have a voiceless sound here before the ed, looked, danced, tipped, you're going to pronounce it as a t from titia, okay? The opposite happens with the second column. When we have hugged, seized, robbed. Before the ed, we have voiced sounds. Voiced sounds, that means that our vocal cords vibrate, and in vibrating, they change the next sound. They have an effect on the next sound, and that effect is also making it a voiced sound. So you're going to pronounce it as a d: hugged, seized, robbed. Pedro, what about the last column? Okay, we have t and d. So here it's a little bit different, but it also makes a lot of sense to me. So let's imagine that because I have t, t is a voiceless sound. It doesn't vibrate my vocal cords. So according to that rule, I should use another t. I would use like suggest, suggest. Suggest doesn't sound like a very comfortable sound, and I would guess that with time, people would stop saying suggest and would start saying suggest, right? So the solution, English found, which is a very elegant solution, is to put a little vowel in between those sounds. So we put a little I, and we have suggested, commanded, okay? So instead of memorizing all those letters, right? Memorizing all those letters that you can find in books, after S, CH, X, and then you have many exceptions as well, right?
It's a schwa, it's an ephenthetic vowel.
Can you repeat that, please?
It's a schwa, it's an ephenthetic vowel, it's a buffer vowel.
Buffer vowel, what do you mean?
Precisely the suggested, commanded.
Ah, okay. Okay, yeah. Something that you feel, you use it to fill some space, right? Is that it?
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks very much. Yeah. So, instead of memorizing all that, in my experience, when I can understand the logic behind it, it makes so much more sense, and it's so much better for me to learn, and I actually feel excited for it. Okay. So one last time, if we have voiceless sounds, if you have trouble identifying them, just put your hand here and try reproducing the sounds like, okay? Try doing that. Open an IPA chart at the end of the presentation and play around with it. Try to identify the sounds, because it really pays off if you want to improve your pronunciation, okay? So now you can understand what's the logic, what are the rules behind these different sounds for ED. Is that clear, guys? Does anybody have any questions? Who? Yeah, I think that's okay. That's nice. If you guys have any question, you can also ask me in the end, okay? So two participants raised hands. Hobson, help me. That's just for the end, right?
You mean questions?
Yeah, like when people raise their hands, that means that they want to ask questions in the end, or they want to ask questions right now?
I don't know. Well, they're raising their hands now, but yeah, they better ask at the end of the session. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So don't worry about the raised hands. They just want to make sure that they will be able to have the floor and speak. Okay.
Okay. That's awesome. So I think I made a strong case on how learning some of the concepts that are involved in the IPA can help you improve pronunciation, either by understanding some processes that occur, but also by better learning pronunciation of specific words going to the dictionary. Now let me tell you about my own personal experience of how learning the IPA and understanding a little bit more about phonetics and how sounds are produced and perceived can help you learn languages faster. Like Hobbs said, I'm currently learning Mandarin Chinese, okay? And a lot of people worry about Chinese, about the tones, right? You have 4 different tones in Chinese, and you have 1 neutral tone in Chinese. That means that if you're saying words in a high note, like ma, or in a low pitch, like ma, it's a completely different word. It's a distinctive trait, right? So ma, 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 ma can be the difference between mom and horse and hemp. Yeah, that's cannabis people. And also curse. So you have these very similar words that because of the tone, it can become a huge mess when you're trying to communicate. And that's actually pretty challenging. Yeah, I had to focus a little bit on the tones when I was learning it. But there's also another aspect that people don't talk very much, don't mention very much. And it's the different sounds that you have to learn to produce. If you are, of course, a Brazilian native speaker and you want to learn Chinese, like you have this sound here, there's the sound of xi, right? I had no idea this sound existed. And then when I started learning Chinese, I took a look at some references for IPA in Mandarin Chinese. I took a look at the chart, and because I understood, like I'm not an IPA expert, okay, guys? But just because I understood how it's organized, I understood the categories, I understood the logic behind it, it was so much easier for me to absorb and master those sounds, okay? So I could learn the sounds of xi, ji, qi, shi, zhi, okay? Just by looking at it, here's the symbol, I have to, it's a retroflex symbol, that's a place of articulation. I have to put my tongue upwards, right? It's a fricative symbol, it's a fricative sound, it's a plosive sound, okay? And just by understanding it, and of course, by seeing YouTube videos, YouTube is cool, helped me many, many times in learning languages, okay? So by combining these resources, YouTube and the IPA, I was able to fairly fast, in my experience, learning all the languages, learn the sounds of Chinese and being more comfortable with it. So what are the benefits of focusing on pronunciation in the beginning? So after like a couple, I think after 2 months learning it, or maybe 3 months, I don't remember quite well, I started posting a series of how I was learning Mandarin Chinese. I posted on my YouTube channel a series of videos on how I was learning the Chinese by myself. And I started receiving some nice feedback from native speakers telling me, especially that my pronunciation was good. I was pronouncing the sounds well, I was pronouncing the tones fairly well. Nowadays, when I look these videos, I feel a little bit embarrassed. I think it's very exaggerated. I think my pronunciation is so artificial, but I think they were being kind to me at all in the beginning. But nowadays, I've been learning it for like a year. I really feel that I achieved a comfortable pronunciation level. I'm not saying that I speak Chinese. I don't think I even have like a B1 level. I think I'm like A1, A2, something like this. Vocabulary learning is so tough, but I think pronunciation really helped me. So right now I'm using a couple of different resources, but mainly I'm using this YouTube channel called Mandarin Corner. It's about these two Chinese teachers, and they create some videos with transcriptions, both in Chinese characters, but also in pinyin. That is the way they the Latin romanized transcription for Chinese, so we can learn it, we can know how to pronounce it. So by learning it in the beginning, even if I don't know the word, I can read it, and that to have an accurate image of how a word sounds helps learning so much. Think about your brain for a second. Let's imagine that you're trying to memorize a word, okay, that you're not sure how to pronounce. For example, let's take this word here. I don't know if it's kishi or shishi or chishi or sishi. If I don't know it, it's quite obvious that it's until you have an understanding that you pronounce it as t-shirt, if you focus in the beginning on learning the sound t-shirt, the process is so much faster. And I say that by comparing with the other languages that I learned. It took me so many years to learn German. Yeah, and part of it is because I didn't know how to learn it. And a part of it is because I didn't give the value to pronunciation that I had to give. And in this case, by starting with Mandarin Chinese, focusing on pronunciation, I was able to get it right from the beginning. Okay, so this is very good. Learning, focusing on pronunciation in the beginning gives your brain solid connections. It gives your brain clear elements to make associations, and we learn by association, okay? It also gives you the freedom to study with materials without audio support, okay? For those who learn languages by yourselves, you know how tough it can be to find adequate, interesting material for you. Not always you're gonna find the perfect material to start a bilingual text with audio by native speakers. Not always we can find that. So if you can advance your process and start learning without the support of audio, it's so much better for you. So I don't have the audio for this text, but I feel very comfortable reading it. Like for example, 爸爸我不会做今天的家庭作业, right? Like I had never heard a native speaker saying that. Maybe there's one mistake here or there, but it's fairly good, in my opinion, in my experience as a language learner, to absorb this vocabulary, okay? And not only with me, but with some happy students, okay? These are a couple of my students, one of which is watching this presentation right now. Hi, Nach. And they are, I could see it again and again, how focusing on pronunciation at the beginning really pays dividends, okay? It's really, really good. What doesn't pay dividends, people, is shaving your own head during the social isolation measures for COVID, okay? That's not a good idea. You're certainly gonna save some money, but you're gonna look terrible, okay, in your Skype lessons. So please look out for professionals, yeah? So I think I made a strong case. I would like to hear your opinion on it, of how learning the IPA, not like becoming an expert on it, but by understanding some of the logic behind it, how sounds are produced, okay? You can sharpen your language learning skills by improving pronunciation in the languages you already speak and by learning new languages faster, okay? So the big question is how to learn it, okay? How to learn it. And it's actually a little bit tough. There aren't many materials out there. I learned it from a course from a linguist that offered a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. He offered a course. I did it. I learned a lot. Most of what I know about the IPA I learned in this course. And then the guy like disappeared, stopped learning languages, became a doctor in Germany. I sent him a message trying to reach out, but I think he wasn't interested in learning languages anymore. So there are two resources you can try to use. These are first steps. There's a handbook of the International Phonetic Association you can use, but it would be a very like autonomous study. It may be a little hard, right? I don't know if I would be. I certainly wouldn't be very comfortable learning it on my own. I think I love learning languages on my own, but something like this, I think it would be a little bit tough. I created a YouTube video called Basic Guide for the IPA. It's like 30 to 40 minutes long. It deals with some basic concepts like the place of articulation, manner of articulation, voiceless and voiced sounds, just like I did here, but with a couple of other things that you can take a look. And I was actually I like this subject so much. I'm very passionate about it. So I actually thought about creating an online course. Like last year I thought about it. A couple of years ago I thought about it. Recently I've been thinking about it. but I don't know if I'm tripping. You know, I don't know if it's something that I'm really passionate about and people wouldn't be interested in participating or spending money with it. So I don't know, I would like to hear you guys on that matter. If you think that maybe having an online course about it would be a good idea. If you guys think that the IPA is absolutely necessary or not so much, maybe you're interested in focusing on making courses on specific pronunciation for specific languages. Either way, I'm totally available for you guys to talk, not only about the IPA, but also about language learning. You can reach me on Instagram. You can send me a direct message on Instagram, Pedro Poliglota. You can also send me an email, adm.pedropoliglota@gmail.com. And this is my personal number, my personal WhatsApp number. If you want to reach out, send me a message, exchange some ideas. We can also talk about it on Zapi. Okay, good. I say Zapi, guys. I speak 7 languages, but I say Zapi, and my wife hates it. She hates it. Okay, good. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks very much. Now, do you guys have any questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Pedro, for your lecture. I'm pretty sure everybody enjoyed, and I'm pretty sure that everybody here acknowledges the importance of learning the IPA for mastering the sound systems of different languages, especially if you're a polyglot. So it's of great help. I'm a phonetician myself, so I'm suspicious to tell, but yeah. Well, we have a couple of questions here in the chat box, and there's also some people who are really enthusiastic about, you know, voicing their questions. So I'll give an opportunity to Cesar Mello so that he can speak. Cesar, you have the floor.
Hi, how are you doing? I hope I'm in the right channel. Am I in the English channel? Yes? All right, great. Can you hear me, Pedro?
Yes.
Great. Well, during my talk, I spoke Portuguese, so now I think this is a great opportunity for people to hear me speak in English, right? I really liked your talk because this is a subject that is really close to my heart as well. I'm self-taught, so I had to learn pronunciation, you know, so that I could become a good speaker. And I really liked the way you brought up the issue of voiced and voiceless sounds, you know, the way they are produced to the throat, and how people can learn just by putting their hand in their throat, you know, just to feel their throat and get that. I am personally a witness to how learning pronunciation can bring you to another level, because when I joined CCAA, my pronunciation really sucked. So I traveled to Rio de Janeiro and I took a training called VisiPitch. It's a pronunciation course called Accent Reduction. It's with a computer program, you know, you pronounce the words and then you find a pattern and then you have to put the words in the right match. And if it doesn't match, you cannot move to the next word. So you learn the pronunciation patterns, you know. So, actually, I don't have a question. It's only a contribution. I mean, the fact that I've learned pronunciation and how to read phonetically helped me to improve, for example, helped me to learn, for example, Spanish when I was learning Spanish. And also, another thing that it's really good is because when you learn how the words are actually pronounced, you listen to them better. You know, it's easier for you to listen to them, especially in songs, for example. I remember there is a song by Michael Jackson. He says, "I can hear your prayers, your burdens I will bear." But I couldn't understand the word burden because it doesn't say burden. It says burden. Right?
Yeah.
So it's really nice. So I really wanted to tell you how much I really appreciated you bringing this subject. It's really nice. So thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much for the things you said. You have a great pronunciation, actually. Like, it's a pleasure to hear you speak in English. It's very natural, very cool.
Just one thing. You talked about the project. Let's talk, man. I'm here from Brasília too. Let's talk. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, please. That's cool. And one thing that you said, like learning how to produce the sounds actually helps you identify them. I have a hard time listening to songs, even in Portuguese. I'm that kind of guy that understood like trocando de biquíni sem parar, you know, like I understand everything incorrectly. I have many alternate versions of Brazilian lyrics in my head. And it really helps you understand things. I think Hobson can talk more about it, but once he told me a very interesting thing about how we perceive sounds. And it can be very, we can be fooled by how we perceive sounds, right? It's very tough. When you see something
Can be deceiving.
Yeah, it can be very deceiving. Like you see a word, a letter on the page, you think you hear it, but that's not true, you know? And by learning the sounds, you can actually give that step up your game, you know, in language learning. I think you said like bring it to the next level, and I agree 100%.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
That's very good. Thank you so much, Cesar, for your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, just one side note on what Pedro just said, you know, about the relationship between perception and production, because sometimes what we perceive is not actually what we're producing, let alone what we are perceiving in a second language. And there's also spelling, because one of the myths that I try to demystify when I'm teaching is that letters do not have sounds. Letters represent sounds, because if you think about it, like spoken language came long before like the invention of writing systems, right? So if we can separate that and understand that letters do not have sounds but rather represent them, right? So that's why the IPA is important. Even though we use symbols, and some of those are like letter-like, but if you understand that sounds and writing systems are two separate things, I think it's a good start. And also that what you perceive in speech is not necessarily what is being produced. For instance, I usually give this example, like when you're talking to a Spanish speaker who is not very familiarized with Portuguese. So if you say avô, they're going to say avô. And then if you ask them to say avó, they're still going to say avô, because they cannot hear this difference, because O and A are not part of the sound inventory of most Spanish dialects. So they can't produce it because they can't hear it. And they do not master, let's say the articulatory gesture to produce that sound. Okay, so I don't want to make this side note like a lecture. So let's see the other questions that we have here, right? I think as this is the last lecture of the morning, so I think we can put more time into it. So we'll try to answer all the questions, right? Since we do not have a lecture right after this one. Okay, so I'll give the floor to Bruno Clemente right now.
Thanks, Matt. Pedro, congratulations for your lecture. It was really amazing. I'm the one who was really into pronunciation as well. But my question is the following. I would like to know, in your opinion, if there might be a critical period where it would be impossible for us to get rid of our native language's influences. For example, where it would be impossible for us to reproduce sounds in a foreign language. I'm saying that because I'm an English teacher as well, so I face students, and every now and then, some of them are not capable of producing those sounds anymore. And as Robinson said, it's a matter of not sometimes hearing the sounds, you know, the difference between the sounds. I would like to know, in your opinion, if there might be a critical period where it would be impossible to get rid of and producing these sounds, you know?
Yeah, so thanks very much for the kind words, Bruno. You have a nice pronunciation as well. It's a pleasure to hear too. And man, to be honest with you, like, I don't think it's a matter of age, but I may be wrong. Like
maybe a matter of practice.
Yeah, I think maybe a matter of practice. And I don't know if I'm going too deep here, but I think like in my experience with my students, clearly some people learn it faster than others. Like, and maybe Robson can also give us a side note about musical talent, right? He has a very interesting research in his PhD about how people that have some kind of musical talent can have a better pronunciation. I really believe in that. I see that in my students. But I think, like, if you wanna start reproducing new sounds, I think in the beginning, it's a leap of faith, you know, like when I heard someone saying there's a difference between, I don't know, there's a difference between man and man. I said, man, you're kidding me. Like, I can't hear anything. That's not possible. But when you believe it, okay, someone that knows more than I do is telling me that there's a difference here. I cannot hear it, but I believe in it, okay? And then when you learn how to produce that sounds, and I think as a teacher, the IPA can also help you teach better. I try to help my students, showing them the vowels and to produce the eh sound like in hat or man. Try to open your mouth like really wide, trying to say ah.
Ear.
Yeah, right. So I think these things really help. Like you can see in their eyes when they finally like perceive a sound, like, and then they hit, whoa, okay, that's a different sound, and then they start believing in you. So I wouldn't say, but that's my opinion, I wouldn't say it's a matter of age. I think there are some things involved that I cannot identify what it is. Maybe something with music. Some people can imitate like naturally some other people, and yeah, that really helps. But I think as being a teacher, if you can help your students with these very practical things, maybe even older people can learn it. Just one last example. Like for example, when I'm teaching French, usually we have some rounded vowels, right? You have U, to help them producing those sounds. I usually say something like, place your mouth like you're going to say E, like Pedro, and then round your lips and say Pedro, right? And it's actually a little bit funny, and it's it lightens the mood and it helps them learn. So I think that's the way to go.
Great, man. Thanks a lot.
That's very good. Thank you so much, Pedro, for explaining. I think even though I'm trying to become a specialist in second language acquisition in phonetics and phonology, I think that people who have more like hands-on and practical experience like Pedro can explain a lot better, because sometimes I guess that my explanations are quite technical even for my own students. So I think, yeah, he's doing like a great job. Okay, so Pedro wanted me to like make a side note on critical period, hypothesis, and the role of age for second language acquisition. Okay, right, well, I don't want to make this a lecture, but usually we tend to think that the earlier, the better, but the older does not equate with impossible, right? Because we see that there are people who start learning like languages like late in life, and they reach a very high level of proficiency, accuracy, and pronunciation, fluency, right? So, you know, there's a factor age, but age that does not explain everything that happens in second language acquisition. Otherwise, you wouldn't have those speakers who reach like very high levels of proficiency, even like learning like later in life. I think I started learning English like at 15. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to like to master it the way that I think that I do if, you know, age really explained everything. And about the musical aptitude and musical training, yes, like there's like research evidence, which I don't have right now. I don't have any data to attest this, but I've been doing like some review literature, and they usually point out that there is let's say a positive correlation between like higher levels of musical aptitude and higher levels of pronunciation accuracy and fluency. So musical aptitude, musical training, and also memory are said to be good predictors in language acquisition. And as for the critical period hypothesis, Bruno, nowadays we you know, because to say that there is a critical hypothesis is something like really complicated, because it's very controversial, and specialists do not agree on what age or age range. So many specialists say different things about the critical period hypothesis, and there's like many problems in saying critical. Specialists nowadays are trying to say like sensitive, you know, because even though like a sensitive period to acquire like a second language, but not a critical, because if you say critical, it means that after that period is impossible to master pronunciation at a native like level. But we see that there are people who outstand at this task, right? Yeah, so I think I I spoke enough. It's not my lecture. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so Selene.
Hi, Pedro. Nice to see you again. Well, congratulations. It was, to me, a great flashback from the time I was in college. And my linguistic teacher would, you know, lecture and lecture about this graph and everything without all the resources you brilliantly added into your presentation now. It was really nice. My question is, how do you work when you have to talk to them about liaisons and language stress and rhythm? Me, when I have a student who may have some trouble grasping exactly the tones and the sounds that they have to reproduce, I try to work with their eyes closed. So I'm imagining, I'm simulating more of the audio perception, because hearing is, let's say, logically the first step. You hear a language for over 2 years, and then you will start trying to reproduce that for modern language. Of course, the IPA helped us when we needed to shorten this process, which is great. But some people have trouble in just relaxing and being able to activate this audio memory that we all have, because we all listen to songs, we all listen, and now, especially nowadays, the resources are endless, and the accents are there all the time. So when people come to us, but this is the way the Australians say that. What is the way the Americans say that? What about the people from South Africa? So the variation is great. So my question is, how do you work with this stress, pattern, rhythm, and liaison things, the chunks of in the sentence?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. That's so interesting. It's so nice to see you again. So I deal with them differently. Like when I'm talking about chunks of language or liaisons, I usually try to create a little transcription for them to help them. Like, for example, if you say not at all, for example, that you connect everything. And English, I think it's because of the syllable structure, right? Because in Portuguese, we usually have consonant, vowel. So we don't have a lot of liaisons. I think only when you have a word in plural and then the S connects and you say like as amigas. I think it's much more common in Portuguese for you to cut up and not saying some sounds. But in English, it's there are some sentences that you pronounce like one chunk, right? Like one word.
Yeah, for example, what did you do yesterday?
Yeah.
How has it been going to you? So when you, the idea is by visually looking at the sentence, they would try to focus on each one of the words.
Yeah.
But when you hear this, especially from someone who is closest to the authentic pronunciation ideal goal, right?
Yeah.
It will come as just only one sound.
Sure. Yeah, I think like I have never tried this thing of closing the eyes, but I think it's a good idea. I have never tried it, but I think that because there's this difference in how we perceive sounds, there's this difference in perception. At least with my students, I don't know if like only listening is enough to make them grasp it. So I really try to write in a very like, how can I say that? To really write how it's pronounced. Like, for example, what do you do? They say, what do you do, right? What do you do? So if I have the impression, but I'm gonna test it, that if I tell my students, close up your eyes and repeat, what do you do? I don't know if they would be able to notice all of the nuances. And I think that if they have a visual support, if I write like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? I think it can be like a help, you know, like they can understand, oh, it would be written like this. This sentence would be written like this big chunk. I think it has been helping me, but I also think that being close, like having direct contact with audio can be interesting. Especially with vowels though, I think it's very hard to perceive vowels. Very hard, like the difference between hot, you know, and man.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to start like understanding these sounds. So I think that when you transcribe for your students, I think it helps them acknowledge.
Yeah, it is inevitable. Yes, of course it is, indeed. An extra resource. It's something that, you know, it's there as a support, you know. I think maybe the way I take when I try to invest on this, eyes closed, to listen to the sound, it doesn't matter what you get, but try to repeat or to copy a sound as if when we are in nature, right? Among nature, and the environment is full of sounds, and we just try to copy that sound. It's just another way. But of course, the importance of IPA is really this, is when you know, you just tell them, okay, you're just not skydiving into this. You have something to support you. That's really important.
Yeah, as far as individual sounds, I think writing really helps. But when we're talking about rhythm, like you said, it has always been so intuitive for me, like shadowing, imitating, that sometimes I have a hard time guiding my students with it, like to really acquire this rhythm, this pace, this melody. I'm still looking for a better way to do that. I think maybe closing your eyes can be a nice. One thing that I always tell them
is this is when music comes and brings the hand.
Yeah. Oh, it really comes into your hand. Like, and one thing that I talk to them in the beginning of our classes is, don't think about repeating, think about imitating, because when people repeat, they have the tendency of saying the individual sounds and taking out the melody aspect of it. So usually I say, oh, if the French guy says bonjour, you're not going to say bonjour, right? You're going to say bonjour, right? You know, so that's I think it really helps acquiring this
the emotional aspect of the language. Yeah.
For sure, yeah, the emotional aspect. That's perfect. That's well put.
All right, so I have a question here of somebody who's really eager to talk to you, but he asked me to read because he's not able to speak for some reason, and it's a question from Kleber Junior. And he says, IPA represents the standard way of pronouncing a word. In order to understand these phonetic symbols, you will need someone to explain them to you, as they may not exist in your language. I think that's a very good point. That's the reason some people pronounce these, that, thank you, and thank you. Would you say someone can learn the IPA, choose the IPA by themselves? How popular is IPA among students these days?
Oh, that's nice. That's a great question. So I learned it through a course. So I think, like, if I only had like a book and audio, I think it would be very hard for me to learn it, actually. But I think there are so many resources on YouTube nowadays, so much content. You can find many of course, you're not going to find like a complete IPA course on YouTube, but you can find specific videos. Like if you're having trouble with one sound specifically, try copying that symbol, the symbol in the IPA that represents that sound, and put on YouTube. You're going to find many videos that can help you with that. I think, like I said, I think people mispronounce it in the beginning, really because they have to learn new sounds. I think, like Hobson said, the sound can be very deceiving, and the written word can be very deceiving. So you have many elements that you have to deal with when you want to improve your pronunciation. If people can learn the IPA by themselves, man, I think it depends on the person. Like I have been very successful learning languages by myself. I have tried learning the guitar by myself, and I failed. Every time I tried to learn it by myself, I failed. Like I understood that.
Don't say that. You have not tried it hard enough.
I don't think so.
Coming from Marcia, like you cannot think negatively. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no problem, no problem.
Give it a try. Give it a go.
Yeah, sure. Like I think with my experience so far, I think it works better for me with a teacher. So if you don't have access to like a course or a teacher to help you with the IPA, I would say go for the languages you already speak. Go with the languages you feel most comfortable with. Try searching on YouTube for specific IPA resources on that language. If you, Klebe, I suppose you're comfortable with English since your question was in English, but let's imagine you're learning French, you have some trouble with the vowels. Try searching for those symbols and learn just what you need. I said this more than once, I'm not a specialist on the IPA. I have there are many symbols I don't know, but just by understanding the logic behind it, nowadays I can learn it by myself. Like I can learn new symbols by myself. I developed an autonomy in the sense that I can look out for this information like I did with Mandarin, right? And it helped. So as far as the last question, how popular is it among students these days? That's a question I would like to have the answer to as well.
You know, it depends on us, teachers, to make it become popular and make it be less of a monster, right? You know, it's not really a monster. It's on us.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, sure. And I think people are curious about it. Like, right? Like I have a cousin, he's also a journalist. And one day he edits my videos on my channel. And he said, before I posted the video about the IPA, he said, man, you could create a video about the IPA. I have always been very curious about that strange symbols. Like, how can I read them? It sounds like black magic. Is it true that you can read any language in the world? And I said, hey, calm down. Yeah, it's not exactly like that, but it really helps. So I think people are curious, but I think like Celine just beautifully said, it's on us, right? I think it's a valuable tool, but I think we have to communicate it, to show people that it's nice. It's actually the most popular video on my channel is the IPA guide. It has like almost 20,000 views. My channel is very small, it's like 5,000 subscribers. For YouTube numbers, it's a very small channel, right? But the video is it's a huge success for me, and I think it's cool.
That's great. So let's make it even more popular. So if you could leave the link, especially in the WhatsApp group. I don't know if you are in the WhatsApp group of Polyglota, so if you could leave the link there. So it would be really interesting so that people could have access to it. I watched it myself, and I attest that it's very good. And as for Clive's question, as a linguist myself and doing a PhD in applied phonetics, I'm going to say, guys, that even among language educators, linguists, phonetics and phonology is regarded as an area that is very difficult, which I don't think so, and it's kind of like underestimated by some because they don't see the importance, because they usually say that when we're teaching English, if you teach pronunciation explicitly, you are trying to Americanize your students, but that's not necessarily so, even though we need like native speakers as, let's say, as a yardstick for, let's say, especially for accuracy. So there's a lot of misunderstanding like in the area. So there are few people in Brazil who are like studying you know, phonetics and pronunciation for second language acquisition, like a specialist. That there's like very few, because people end up specializing in like language teaching in general, or even like literature and language teaching, teacher education. So there's not a huge focus on phonetics and phonology, like even among specialists. And among students, I don't know, many of my students do not know like much about pronunciation. I'm usually the first one who bring like the thing to them, because they, you know, they have like, let's say, when they know it, they know it vaguely. But as Pedro said, there's like lots of resources that you can find like online, and you don't need to, for example, study the IPA official guide if you think it's too difficult enough. But you can find like videos like Pedro's, like Rachel English has also very interesting and practical videos. There are like courses like American Accent Training, and there's a new software right now called like Pronunciation Power. So there's like many resources, like paid and free, that are available online. Okay, there's a second question by Klebe as well. And okay, this one is a good one. By the way, Pedro, some sounds in English are aspirated, such as the p, t, and k, as in pit, tan, and cat. How is this aspiration represented in the IPA? So could you show it to the audience?
Sure. Awesome, great question. Let me share my screen one more time. So you want to reproduce this feature using this little H here. Can you see aspirated? So this little H comes after the sound. So if you put just this sound, just this symbol, it's t, like ta ta. But if you put, let me use a notepad. I think it can help, right? If we do like, if you make a transcription like this, right? This is tata, tata. And if you put this little H, it becomes ta, ta, like in English, right? Ta, like tie or pie or cake. And it's interesting, in English, I think it's a matter like more like of adjusting your accent. And I don't think people will misunderstand you if you say time instead of time, right? But for example, in Mandarin Chinese, it's a distinctive rate. So if you say D and T, it's completely different. It's like avo yavo, right? It's if you say ka and ka, pa and pa, it's completely different. It's a different word. It's a distinctive trait. It's another, right? So it can be important to learn these aspirated distinctions. Okay.
Very good. Let's go for some more questions here. Okay, so Josie, you have the floor.
Hey, Pedro, again.
Hey, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for one more time for this. It was amazing.
Oh,
and
thanks.
My question is, I think we've already talked a little about it, but once I started learning English, for example, I didn't have any experience and I didn't know the system. And I really wanted to master the pronunciation. It was always very important to me, but I didn't have the support. So I remember I had to like keep looking to my teacher's lips so I could understand how the sounds worked. So do you think this system could help us to save us some time? Like if you're learning for a language for the first time, how much time do you think we can save? Considering also we have to learn the system.
Yeah, oh, that's a good question. So first of all, I remember when I met you in Poliglotar last year, I was like very impressed by your pronunciation. I think you speak all the languages that you speak, I think you speak them beautifully. And I remember I asked you, Josie, have you studied the IPA? And you said, no. I said, man,
Exactly.
how can she do it? How can she do it? Because your pronunciation is flawless. It's nice, right? And I said, man, I like, it's a mystery to me. But I think you gave me an answer right now, like trying to observe how the lips move. I think that's the way to do it. Learning the symbol of the IPA doesn't help you reproduce the sound. What helps you reproduce the sound is understanding how it is produced. So the place of articulation, the manner of articulation, voiced and voiceless aspects. So by taking a look, by really observing your teacher's lips, what you were doing is intuitively, which is very nice, trying to understand how that sound is produced, you know? So I think that's really cool. It was, clearly it worked for you. And you also asked me like how much time it would save in your language learning if you learn the IPA. Is that it, or did I misunderstand it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Like if you had to start a language, like right now, and you didn't know the system, you had to learn the system and how it works. Do you think you would save time, or like it would be better for you?
Yeah, so I think it's freezing a little bit, but okay.
Yeah,
can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So, hi, Josie, can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me, but do I answer any problems?
Yeah, you can still answer because she'll be able to watch the recording, the recorded lecture.
Ah, okay, great. Okay, good. So, for me personally, all the languages I'm gonna learn in the future, I'm gonna take some time to understand the sound system first, like I did with Mandarin Chinese. I cannot measure it and say how many hours I saved exactly. That would be very, very hard to measure, right? Maybe impossible. But by my experience, the experience I had learning German, for example, or French, and the experience I'm having right now learning Chinese Mandarin, that is almost out of this planet, right? It's very tough. But I can feel like it really made a difference. I'm absorbing vocabulary much faster than I did with German, which is a little bit puzzling for me. But I think it has to do with having clear image and understanding of comprehension of how the words actually sound. I think when you have it, you have a clear image. It's faster, right? It's faster. It's more effectively. It's good for motivation, right? You sound well. You get positive feedback from native speakers. It's insane the kind of connection you can create with a native speaker if you have a good accent. It's immediate. When you start talking to a native speaker, you have a good accent. You make an instant connection, and I think for a lot of people, right, it's to connect with people from different cultures. I think you have this level of empathy that you achieve when you sound like someone from that country. Some people make it a political discussion, right? Like you said, like, oh, you're Americanizing your students. It's okay to have a Brazilian accent. And of course, it's okay to have a Brazilian accent, right? But it's okay to have an American accent too. I'm speaking English. I'm going to be a Brazilian. I don't stop being a Brazilian because I speak English like an American person. I'm Brazilian all the way, right? Nothing changes.
Yeah. And we'll always speak with an accent anyway. It doesn't matter how American you'll sound, how Americanized you sound. So right? So yeah, okay, we have the target, but yeah, I think we have to be aware. And I think like applied linguistics and language teaching sort of like taught me that it doesn't matter like how much or how hard you try, you'll never be that person. So I think that's where we have to draw the line, right? That everybody's experiences are unique, and even if you have like a heavy accent, like I once saw like a quote on Instagram that said that speaking with an accent is like it's an act of let's say braveness. So, and I think this is really interesting. I think that the important thing is not to lose motivation, but there are some sounds which you know, if you don't master them, that they cause problems for communication. So yeah, I think the let's say the heavier focus should be placed on the teaching and acquisition learning of these pairs of sounds, right? Ana Luisa has a question, so you have the floor now.
Hi, I am a Chilean that grew up in Brazil, so kind of my Portuguese is my first language, and then I learned Spanish. And I don't know, you speak Spanish, right?
Yeah.
So how do you see this difference of B and V that in Portuguese is very clear, but in Spanish it's horrible. Sometimes they say the contrary, but writing, you need to, like dictation on school, I suffer a lot because if I listen to the teacher, I have it wrong. Like, for example, the cow, vaca. In Spanish, people say vaca, but when you wrote with V. Even when you say B or V in Spanish, is B larga, B corta. So you cannot say B.
Sure.
You need to say, like, to difference it. And in Spanish, at least to me, for me, it's the same. Or they like Spanish speakers, native speakers, they don't care about the pronunciation of B or V.
Yeah, it's a nice question. For me, it's the same too as well. Like I say with a B sound, like I say vaca, right? I say Barcelona. Like for me, I think it's the same sound. I think it's a problem of spelling. Maybe in the past they were different. Nowadays they sound the same. I don't know. But I don't know how to, I don't know if I can explain you like why it's the same and it's written differently. I think we would have to take a look at the history of the language, the history of the written form, and see exactly what happened there. But what I know from my experience and from some teachers told me is that when you have these disparities in spelling, you can safely infer that in the past, these sounds used to be different. And then the language changed, they became the same sound, and the spelling continues differently. I think Spanish has a very good spelling system, in my opinion, just like Italian. For me, it's very clear the way you pronounce it. When you go to English and French, it's insane. It's a complete mess. And then the IPA is more helpful, I guess. I don't know if I answered your question. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Another little stuff that I remember somebody talking, I don't know Japanese, but I learned wakarima and wakarimasen. That is, I understand and I don't understand.
Okay.
But they were saying to me, this person talking to me, but it's a very soft M that only Japanese can say. So like, don't even try to do this special M because Latin Americans wouldn't know how to do it because of our way to speak.
Sure.
Yeah, and the last thing is that somebody told that Portuguese is a very nice language to learn because talking Portuguese, you have almost all the phonetics that exist. So knowing Portuguese should be easier to know another language.
Oh, okay. So I'm curious about that Japanese sound after we finish this up. I'm definitely going to take a look on how to pronounce that.
Can I say?
Right.
Can I
Sure.
say something? The Japanese N is a uvular N. It's very close to a velar N. Okay, a velar N is like NG in English. And the uvular Japanese N is more back than the GNG. It's nga. Wakarimasen. It's a go back there. It's an uppercase N in phonetic in IPA.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
Can
I
you
think
say that again?
the one.
Yes, ang. That's the sound. Ang. It's
Okay.
similar to NG in English, like ang, but it's more
okay.
back. It's like ang. It's a uppercase N in IPA.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, but okay, I study Japanese myself, and I would like to make a comment. But that sound does not always happen. I mean, it's very it's like that as in sing in English, but it only sounds like this when it's near like a velar sound, like ha and ga, for example. And that, well, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe Steven knows some Japanese as well, but I don't think like wakarimasen sounds like wakarimasen, because you don't have the phonetic environment that trigger.
No, it does. It does. It doesn't have to be triggered. It's always nga, because there are two N's in Japanese. There's like nani, nune, no, a normal N, and there is a separate letter, which is that N. It's a separate letter, and when you say wakarimasen, that final N is that letter. It's a separate letter just to represent the nga sound.
Wakarimasen. No. What you're trying to say is that the n is like it is a sound in Japanese, but what I was trying to say is that I don't know if the ng is
you
part
said
of the...
that it's triggered. You said that it's triggered by a ka or gab. It's not. It's not triggered by anything. It doesn't have to be triggered by another sound. It's a phoneme by itself in Japanese. It's a nga sound. Wakarimasen. It doesn't need a G or a K after it, like in English, for example.
Yeah, I think I'll run. That's interesting. So what you're trying to say is that you have like n, like the alveolar, and the more back, like n, as two independent sounds.
Yeah, there are different sounds, different letters too.
But what I'm trying to say is that by my little experience learning Japanese, I don't think, I might be wrong. My Japanese teacher is a native. I'm gonna run this by him, but I don't think that wakarimasen is like wakarimasen, like at the end of the.
It is.
The word.
Check it. It is. I'm sure of it.
Okay. All right, Sivan. Thank you so much. One last question, Luciana. You have 1 minute, and Pedro, you have 1 minute because we have to close in the session.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Thank you. I'm going to be very quick here. I just wanted to say that my experience with the IPA is wonderful. When I learned English, when I trained to be an English teacher, and then at college, I had the opportunity to really learn about IPA. But I don't think that students, they need to go through the process of learning the way we as professionals learn. I'm not a teacher anymore. I've been a translator now for more than 20 years. But if I were a teacher, I would incorporate that into every class, because the students are going to see how important that is and how helpful that is, and they will ask more questions. So, for instance, one specific difficulty is the th sound. I don't remember the name of the symbol, but the circle with the... So if we incorporate that into our everyday practice, the students are going to learn that without knowing they're learning the IPA. I don't know how many teachers we have here, but now I'm learning Spanish and Chinese, and I see how important knowing the IPA is to me right now, because Chinese, I'm very, very, very basic in the beginning, and I am able to recognize the intonation, and that's a wonderful feeling, right? So I just want to say that you're amazing. You know, your English is perfect, excellent. Everything that I heard here, I was so happy. And that's it. I just wanted to say how happy I was to hear about your experience with IPA. And if you're a teacher, the rest of the colleagues here, please incorporate that into your everyday work, because that's the most important thing you can do for your students. And now as a learner of Spanish and Chinese, I can guarantee that it helps me a lot, a lot. And that's it. Thank you so much. I was so happy to go back to my teacher days. That's quite moving for me, right?
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's very nice to hear that.
Yeah.
I really think that
Thank you.
I agree with you 100%. If you incorporate the symbols, they get curious. It gets easier to connect the sounds and the symbols. I think it's really the way to go, and I have seen progress in many students using this. And since you are in the beginning of Chinese, like I'm not super advanced or anything, but I've been learning it for a year or two. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about it. I created a couple of resources that helped me a lot with pronunciation. Maybe I can share them with you. I have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel. Okay. So if you're interested, maybe you can send me a direct message on Instagram and we can talk more about that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Nice. Thank you for your comment, Luciana. And there's also one of our lecturers, I think she has a pronunciation material as well, Karina Cunha. So you can also talk to her. I don't know if she's in our WhatsApp group, but you can try to reach out to her like somehow. She has a YouTube channel called Dominando Mandarin. So yeah, so you can find resources even through Pedro, who's been learning like Chinese for quite some time now, or Karina as well, who is an interpreter and a Chinese teacher. Okay, that was a very pleasant session. Thank you everybody for coming. Right, so yeah, so I think we're really running out of time. I mean, yeah, it's been like a little bit of a longer session, but as we did not have a lecture right after it, so I decided to try to answer all the questions like live. Okay, so thank you so much, Pedro, for your time and for like defending the area so well. So I'm really glad that, as you put it, even though you are not like a specialist in phonetics and phonology, so it's really interesting to see your enthusiasm and you're willing to share like your experience and your knowledge in the field with others. And this is valuable. This is so valuable. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a nice Sunday. Okay, see you in the next Poliglotar.
Okay, see you. Bye.
Bye, see ya.